And it is 5 o'clock. Welcome and thank everyone for attending our E-SPLOST question and answer session today. We're going to begin with some questions that we have received via, I would assume, email through the Dropbox. And we're going to respond to those first. Do you want to take the first question? Who would like to take the first question? We've got them here in front of us.
I can do that.
Okay.
So one of the questions was, is this a new tax? The answer is no. We've had this E-SPLOST tax since 1997, but it has to be renewed every 5 years. So this is simply a renewal of a tax that's been in place for 27 years.
I'll take the next one.
Okay.
Another one of the questions that we have received during our renewal process is, what does the E-SPLOST pay for? And that's a fair question. They pay for new buses, technology. Previous E-SPLOST paid for Harmony School, paid for Hill City School. What are some other things? The ag facility at the high school and the junior high, baseball fields, softball fields, and we're in the process of remodeling the high school. That too is paid for E-SPLOST.
Okay, and then I'll put the next question, which is, what will E-SPLOST pay for if passed? We have two schools that are coming up on a remodel, which are Hill City and Harmony, and possible future construction of a college and career academy. And those are the three big things that we are looking at paying with by E-SPLOST.
And I still think of Hill City and Harmony as being new schools. Okay, in my mind, they're new. But one of them's 20 years old, Hill City's 20 years old, and Harmony is coming up to 20 years. And one of the things that we get is that the government, once a school hits that 20-year mark, we get government funds to help with that renovation. Not completely, but we do get help from the government to help to make these renovations. Renovations can be anything from new heating and air to a new roof to updated bathroom facilities, just everything to make the school day better for our children.
Sure, I'll take the next two. It's another question that we've received. Why is there bond language in the referendum? And really the answer to that question is, it's just a safety net. It's added protection, just against any type of unforeseen shifts that may happen in the economy. It's our plan not to issue bonds, but it's in the language just in case for added protection, okay? And then I've also gotten this question before, why is E-SPLOST on the ballot now, okay? And to kind of give you just a little bit of context, we're currently in E-SPLOST 6 that was on the ballot in November of 2020, and it was set to take effect starting in 2022. And E-SPLOST they have a 5-year length of time, or they also have a collection cap. And so the E-SPLOST is in existence either for 5 years or until the collection cap is reached. And we are predicting to reach our collection cap at the end of this year in 2025. E-SPLOST, the 5th year, is actually in 2026, but we're capping out or reaching our collections 1 year early, which is why it's on the ballot in March. And boards of education can only have E-SPLOST on the ballot twice a year. Once is in March, and the other time is in November. And if an E-SPLOST does not pass, you've got to wait an entire calendar year before it's back on the ballot again. And so we decided that it was better for us to have an E-SPLOST on the ballot in March, because we're going to wind up capping out our collections at the end of 2025. And if it doesn't pass, we can have it back on the ballot in 2026. It just makes much more fiscal sense for us to do it in March as opposed to November. So that's why it's on the ballot. And we've got a lot of those questions about why E-SPLOST is on the ballot in March. That's the response.
I'd be happy to take that next one if you want to.
Well, I have something to say about that.
Oh, go, please.
That next one that says who pays for
Yeah.
E-SPLOST, So I've been asked that question a couple of times, who pays for this? And the answer, and I like what they put here, anyone who shops in Pickens County. So anybody who comes through Pickens County and stops at the store and buys something, that helps pay for this, instead of it just going to the people who live here. I like that question because so many people are worried about money coming out of your pocket, but the way this is set up, it's divvied out to everybody who comes through here, so, all right.
Well, I said that's one of my, I've only been on this board for 2 years, but as a citizen and a parent of kids, this is what I loved about E-SPLOST, because everybody coming through our community pays this tax. It's not just a burden or what we as Pickens County are paying, everybody does. So it's a great way for us to realize these funds, for us to have the great schools and facilities and things that we need to support our kids and our families. So even when I was not a board member, I advocated for this.
So how many counties are in the state of Georgia?
159.
How many counties don't have an E-SPLOST?
Two.
And why not? Do we know? One is Glenn County, one is Burke County. Now, Glenn County is
St. Simons.
St. Simons, that explains that. And then Burke County has some sort of a power plant, a large, something, they have, it's something that they have in there that generates the tax revenue, so they do not. So, and I think I explained this in a post that I had made on Facebook, that, even if you don't want it to be here, even if you don't want an E-SPLOST in Pickens County, if you go to Cherokee, Dawson, you're gonna have to drive, if you don't wanna pay an E-SPLOST, you're gonna have to drive to Burke County or to Glenn County. If you go to Glenn County, take me with you, because I love it down there, but, yeah, those are the only two counties that don't have it. So. Do we have another question?
Maybe
The last one.
Yeah, I can, yes, sir. Why should E-SPLOST be passed with a fund balance of over $20 million? That's roughly 41% in reserve funds, 41% of an annual budget is reserve funds. That mirrors the state of Georgia's reserve funds. There's 39% they hold, which would cover roughly 4 to 4.5 months in the event of a catastrophe. Otherwise, if funds were depleted and we had an unforeseen situation, we might need to borrow money. As it is, we're drawing interest on that money in the bank instead of paying interest to a bank.
One other thing in regard to that, or a couple other things in the reserve, if people go look at that, for 3 years prior to this, we got federal COVID dollars that they gave to the school system. So if you go look at the trend of that fund balance, it actually grew over these last 3 years. That funding ended starting with this fiscal year, so we no longer have that. So, and of note to everybody else, we realize we have some fund balance. Our budget we set this year, we brought back in-house our custodians, which was a tremendous thing, and then we benefited greatly from that. But one of the things that we did with our budget, our revenue actually is less than our expenses this year. We're expecting to realize a loss, and part of the reason for that was because we did have a fund balance and we could do that. So it's not like we're anyway hiding anything or doing anything. The other thing about that, it's also the other reason I'm going to bring this up, the HB 581 that probably all of us voted for to cap property tax valuations. We just went through all of that. We are one of the few counties that did not opt out of that as a school system because we wanted to pass those tax benefits along to our citizens. Another reason we felt comfortable doing that is because we do have a healthy fund balance. The reality is we're going to lose some revenue based off that, but we felt like that's something we could do because we're healthy, we're fiscally healthy.
And we wanted to do what the voters
Exactly.
wanted us to do.
Yeah, one other thing worth mentioning in that is the board did approve an increase in the low income senior tax exemption of 60% increase in that threshold. It's been approved. Representative Jaspers is taking care of that through the legislature. It wouldn't be official till it's done there, but I've talked with him this week. It is progressing. And that will I don't remember the estimated figure, it was around $1 million, when it maybe that was less.
House Bill 581, the potential revenue loss there is about 1.3 million. The senior tax exemption, we don't have a number on, it's unknown, which is concerning, because there is no demographic information that's collected at the county level to let us know how many people out there could qualify, so we can't calculate how much that's going to cost us, but it will cost us some revenue. Right now, it's only about $300,000 a year, but it's an unknown, so
And with a generous fund balance, it's a
We
good time
felt-
to take
okay,
that
we
leap of
felt okay
faith
with
and
that.
see what happens.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's it for the questions that we've seen.
Okay, at this time, we are gonna waive our board policy, BCBI, public participation in board meetings. We're going to allow members of the audience to ask us a question on E-SPLOST. We will respond or attempt to respond. Excuse me, there will be two different ways we will do this. Our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Parker, will be in the audience and will come to you with a handheld microphone. You can ask us a question, we're gonna answer it. If you are not comfortable speaking in public, we do have some paper and pens in the back, and you can write your question down, and Mr. Parker will read it. Want to reiterate, this afternoon has been advertised as a question and answer regarding the E-SPLOST, so please make it
In the form of a
E-SPLOST.
question.
Right, in the form of a question, and also, you know, we're here to talk about the E-SPLOST, and just make sure you write or ask a question, so.
Okay.
And we'll open it up to anybody that's got a question.
When you said, I don't need that. When you said, somebody said, the money comes from the government after 20 years to help the schools,
Yeah,
who's the government? What,
The state
the
government.
state government.
okay,
So the State Department of Ed sets aside money for all the schools that we build. It accrues at the state. It's for each school, but it's not enough to do all. It's just a certain percentage. So for instance, when we're renovating, like Pickens High School right now, that's like a $20 million renovation, the whole thing. We'll capture about $5 million from the state, which means $15 million comes from our local funds. And that's about the same thing with any time we do. When we do Hill City or Harmony, we might capture, 60 to 70, or no, we capture 30% maybe of the money from the state. The rest of it comes from local funds. Is that adequate? Yeah.
The state's got a term for it, local fair share. They expect the local municipalities to contribute a fair share on any project like that.
Good question. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to ask this question here. If the E-SPLOST does not pass, obviously y'all will be working on budgets. What's that gonna look like, and what will students see, short-term, long-term? What will the general public see that's different from how it is now that we do have an E-SPLOST?
There's certain things that are yearly expenditures that are gonna be needful regardless of whether it's SPLOST or not. For example, buses. We usually purchase 5 to 7 new buses annually. And then there's, technology items that we still will need. I'm forgetting something, I went totally blank.
Those are
That's two of the main things.
technology stuff that's yearly.
And there are some maintenance functions that we're still gonna have to perform. Amy might be better to give you a ballpark figure on how much that is annually on average.
For what we budget in, out of E-SPLOST for maintenance, typically is $1 million a year. And those are for large projects. It's not for the everyday, run of the mill, keeping the light bulbs in. It's the larger projects like HVAC units that are $25,000 to $30,000 that have to be replaced. We are trying to get a system of replacement. Those went by we didn't keep a good system of replacement for years way back, and we're still playing catch up with that. Our buses, we have one of the best bus fleets in the state of Georgia. We have air conditioning on our buses. A lot of systems don't. Middle to South Georgia, you will not see the same type buses in the same shape. Our fleet is very safe. we would not be able to provide that. Right now, the state, Georgia Department of Education, state of Georgia, they provide us about half to 2/3 of the purchase of one bus per year. And that's only if the bus bonds pass in the state budget. So right now, we're buying typically 5 to 6, so they help pay for part of one. So if we don't have E-SPLOST, the choice is don't buy the buses, don't buy as many buses, but if we do buy them, it's going to have to come out of general fund, which can drive the millage rate up, which is your property tax. Technology, keeping up with technology, the one-to-one technology in the classroom, replacement of servers, which is 3 to 5 years, sometimes 8, and we have our chief of technology here. Things like that that are the norm that are on a replacement basis. It could either slow it down or push it into general fund. It depends on what the community wants to do. But it could eliminate being able to provide what we currently are able to provide for the students. So very safe buses, great technology and one-to-one in the classroom, keeping our facilities nice. The option to be able to bring certain things in-house was great, but that was through general fund. Paying for the equipment, the large equipment, even our white fleet, which our maintenance guys use to keep the place running properly. Those things, there's a big effect, but the renovations and modifications to keep the schools nice, that is a lot of what we do out of that budget. So we either push it into general fund where that millage is gonna go up, or we don't do them, or we do them a lot slower than we do now.
Let me ask something else too. That's a great question. There's 180 districts in Georgia, okay? 178 of them have an E-SPLOST. And what that allows districts to do is spend between 88 and 90% of their local budget on personnel, okay? The E-SPLOST does. And so if it does not get passed, one of the things that will likely have to happen is, definitely some reallocation of resources like Ms. Smith said, but you could also see where there could be higher class sizes. There could be higher class sizes in our schools. And it also would be difficult for us to attract the kind of people that we want leading our kids and teaching our kids on a daily basis. And more importantly, keeping those people. So that is something that if it doesn't pass, you're looking at, again, having to reallocate resources, but it would affect personnel.
So I'd say too, this is just in general, long-term. This is why I've thought about this for a long time before I was on the board. This is why I like this. State money coming to school systems as a percentage has gone down over many years, which means more of the money had to come from the local district, whatever that is. In our case, our district, Pickens district. So one of the things the state did was provided this E-SPLOST, because what it does, they've opened the door. They've added a few things. So there's a lot of expenses that we can take care of with E-SPLOST, just to Dr. Thomas's point, that if we can't do that, then you have to look at potentially cutting in the critical areas that you don't want to have to cut. So it gives us tremendous flexibility. And the reason I love it is because everybody coming to our community pays this tax. Everybody driving through, stopping, eating at the restaurant. And so it gives us great flexibility. And listen, my kids have benefited from, we have really great facilities, technology, classroom. Both of my kids are in college right now. They have educations here. I think it's really important that we provide a great education in this community. And I feel like that's what we do. And so that E-SPLOST has been a really important part of that for many years to do that.
And if I could, line off of what you two guys said, one of the things that I was challenged by when running for the board was the common statement was, we just want you to take care of our kids. Take care of our kids. Our kids are the most important thing to us. Well, it's kind of hard to do that unless you take care of the people who are actually on the front line taking care of the kids. So, like Amy said, a lot of times our money, it may not be E-SPLOST that provides money for the teachers like that, but it gives us the flexibility to offer them enough money to keep the good teachers here. Does that make sense? So a lot of times when we're searching, we're able to search for those quality people to come in and take care of our children for us. And that's the goal, right? Take care of them and teach them the right.
And let me just reiterate, being a school teacher, I was a big fan of repeating things sometimes, but this is not a new tax. This tax has been in place since 1997. Nothing's going to go up as far as this goes. This will help keep our property taxes down, but this is not a new tax.
How many, back to the bus issue or question, how many mechanics do we have in transportation right now?
3.
Okay. And they're doing the regular maintenance,
Yeah,
the
there's,
flat tires, the diesel, the
there's a
upkeep.
routine thing you have to keep up. But one of them works not even the whole year.
Right,
One of them works as a foreman and does some other things. We're able to, do some compromise there. We used to have 5 people that worked in the shop years ago. So, one of the reasons we're able to do that is because the fleet's a little bit better, yes, Texas.
right.
But what they do is there's a cycle that the state puts them through, that they have to do these inspections every so often. And about the time you get finished with all of them, you gotta start back at the beginning, if that makes sense. So the guys now are doing more safety inspections, more general maintenance, upkeep, like oil changes and things like, and not doing a lot of repairs. So we can have it with less people.
How old is our oldest bus, do you know?
Well, we have buses that are over 10 years old that we don't run every day.
Right,
The ones we run every day are all 10 years or less, and I think the average bus is like 4.5 years old. So, and the goal, like the gold standard goal, is to have all the buses under 10 years, and we do. It's probably only, I'd say it's around 10% of the state has that probably.
okay,
But yeah, we want all the buses to be under 10 years. And the way to do that, we have about 60 buses. You buy 6 a year, you have 60,
Right there. If for some reason E-SPLOST does not pass, you're also an HR guru here. How many mechanics would we have to hire for that? Because we're running 2, one on a kind of a part-time basis.
I mean, over time, obviously not
Obviously,
immediately, but
right.
over time, it would add people. And, like I think Joe and Dr. Thomas said, over time, the shifting of the cost of the bus into the general fund would cut into the money we could pay the mechanic as well. So
Okay.
you would need to add, you may have to add a mechanic and you would have less overall money to pay that person.
Mhm.
And that's one example. I know you're asking about one person, but that's one
Right,
example.
well, I mean, I bought my son a car and it wasn't new because he's young. But I mean, I have to fix it quite a bit, and so I know what that's running me right now, which is poor.
One of the more things you can do in-house and not have to send it off to somebody else to
Right.
fix, the cheaper it can be overall.
But I mean, the older the car, the more problems you have, which is kind of my point. So we would have to possibly look at bringing that third person on full-time and then adding another.
Yes.
Okay. Which is an expense in itself.
And the final end, when you run out of things to cut, then the only choice would be to increase the number.
Right.
Right.
And that would be an absolute last resort, but that could happen.
I can ask a quick question about the buses that's phased out. What kind of policy do you have to get rid of them? I mean, do you get anything for them?
Yes.
You just-
They, after, we have to keep a certain number of them. They get phased out first of the general fleet, like the everyday fleet. They keep some backups, right? Then when the backups get old enough, they go into a surplus that the board votes on at the end of every month. They vote on the surplus. We put a bus on there. Then it goes on something called Gov Deals, where people buy them. They auction them off, and that money goes back into the general fund. Is that right? That's it. I got all
So
that.
all the technology with the buses go with the old bus? There's nothing salvageable?
Yeah, I don't think, well, we sell the whole bus to somebody else. So sometimes think of like Boys and Girls Club, or there's organizations out there that would use it every day, churches. They might go buy a bus that's 12 or 15 years old and have a lot of use for it. So we'd sell it to them as it is how we do it now, yes, sir.
But we do typically pull the technology off. Say there's a camera on the bus,
Yeah,
we will
camera,
pull those off.
That
And we
was
do
my
have
question.
iPads that are part of the tracking system, and
Right.
we do pull things like that off, yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, we also sell them to other schools, right?
We have, we do use a bidding process, like Mr. Parker said, that is usually through an auction system. But we do get, we get some money for them, usually by the time we're done with them. Not a whole lot of folks want them, but Middle and South Georgia counties will buy them, and we do have private schools that have bought them and other school systems. So,
But we don't just get rid of them.
no, we
I
don't
mean,
give them
okay,
away.
they go through a process and we get something back for them, yes, sir.
But everyone has to be approved. The board has to know and vote to make sure that they're okay with, that they know how old it is, how many miles it has on it, things like that before it's allowed to be surplused and sold.
Okay, that's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
In reference to the buses, I have 2 buses that comes by my road 5 days a week. And I'm sure there's reasons for that. But are those buses full? I mean, is every bus that we put out for the
That's a
most
great
part
question.
full? Or, because I know a lot of parents, their kids drive to school or they truck them to school.
So I can answer that. That's a great question. First off, the reason 2 buses come is because kindergarten and 6th graders ride together and 7 and 12, so that's why you got 2 buses. And then, they reroute every year. So the answer to your question is yes, they're pretty full. I mean, we have to take everybody that says they want a bus and put them on a bus. So then some of them don't ride every day, right? So we try to have around 40 people on a bus. And so you may have 32 on a bus on a given day, but 40 if everybody showed up. And some people's parents will sign them up for a bus knowing they're only gonna ride a few times, but we hold them a spot. And if at the end of the year, that next route, for whatever reason, only 31 people of those people wanted a bus the next year, that would reroute everybody and they would capture some more people. So 2 years ago, we had, I hope this number's right, it's gonna be close. We had 59 routes of them, okay? And
We had 61.
61 drivers, but we didn't use them all. We had a
We
couple
had
less
61
routes.
routes.
And now we're down about 7 routes this year from what we had last year, just by reconfiguring some things. And so next year, we may have to go up some more. So that number would fluctuate based on the customers, if that makes sense. You're not gonna they don't just take an area to the county and say, this is their bus area, and if it's full or it's not full based on how many kids ride, they'll reroute them over the course of the year. So it is possible you could see a bus with 20 kids on it because there may be some kids that signed up and just haven't been riding. But over time, you would self-correct that. We do try to keep the buses not packed, because the bus will hold 72 kids, 3 to a seat, but that's not ideal. You want it to be at the most 2 kids per seat. And we've been able to do that for the most part. But there is an effort to make them as efficient as possible and try to get that number down as low as we can.
They must be unloaded by the time they come to my house then.
Well, that could be true. That could be true too. Because they start somewhere and they end somewhere, right? But if you give me an exact number down there, I can tell you. But I know that we did reroute this year, and the bus drivers, in some cases, weren't overly excited about it because we did add more people in some cases to some routes. So yeah, but you might have the unlucky route, just like one of the last ones they drop off, and it'd be pretty light then.
When I drove for 15 years here, they started at my house with my foster kids and my kids, and they ended at my house, so.
Hold on a second. Would you like to work, sir?
My nurse couldn't.
We got a spot for you. We can shower tomorrow.
Get that man an application.
Steve, is that you?
Yes, sir.
That's Steve.
The goatee threw me off.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Those mechanics, I'll just throw this in, they earn their pay.
They do a good job.
Yeah, they do.
It's a full-time job.
And sometimes they wear several hats.
They probably didn't have air conditioning when you was driving.
No, sir.
So he can attest.
I had the Leadville route,
Yeah.
Blacktop and down in that area, and I had a full load when I left school going down the highway. I'm glad to hear that, that's not crowded anymore.
They try to. I mean, the answer is they're all variants because of who rides.
That's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bus driving, tough job. The guy told me one time that if you're a bus driver, all your problems are behind you. I didn't know he was trying to drive bus, trying to guide. We do need some good drivers. I mean, we've got good drivers. We need some more. It's a really tough job to fill because you gotta have CDL and all that. So yeah, I do appreciate your work.
It's a big responsibility.
Yes, sir.
For sure. I had to quit my volunteer fireman job because I was afraid the conflict
Yes,
could lead to a problem.
yes,
It's, you gotta devote it strictly to the bus.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
One thing that I could add to what Mr. Parker said, the board approved expenditure for some technology and routing software to modernize our routes about a year and a half ago. And that's where we were able to trim some down, and we hired, a transportation professional to head up our fleet. And that's worked well for us too.
Anyone else?
You got anything?
Honey, do you have a question?
I do. I just gotta say, y'all, it's been 27 years. You've been getting millions of dollars, not just you, but the county. My concern is, why aren't we feeling any of those effects? Don't just tell me that it's because the property taxes haven't gone up. Mine have doubled at the age of 73 and my husband is 77. We don't feel it. Why don't we feel it?
I don't feel,
Why
I'm
don't we
sorry.
feel like there's been millions put into the school system? I don't feel it. I'm just telling you
Okay,
how I feel.
that's a fair question. So we can sit here and tell you all of the improvements we've made. Would
And
that
I
help
get
you?
that.
Would that help you?
No.
Okay. How would you, I guess my question to you would be, what would make it where you could feel it, I guess?
Well, I think I don't know how many millions it's been for 27 years, but that's gotta be a lot of millions of dollars. In my opinion, I would think that after E-SPLOST has been in effect for 27 years, that there should have been, the tax burden should be affordable in Pickens County for everybody. Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody should be on the same page, everybody should be loving everybody, and spread the love, okay? Spread it around. I don't feel it. I don't feel it.
Now, if I may say, my property taxes doubled this year as well.
Well,
So I understand.
So
that don't make me feel any better because yours did.
We weren't the ones
let
that raised it, we lowered the millage or tax assessors,
I
the
want to
one
hear
that
about the
raised your
millage,
value.
really.
Well, I have a slide on that. I actually prepared a slide, if somebody's got it. This is the slide I put together today. And hang with me, because I'm gonna get to what you're feeling. So just hang with me, okay? Taxpayer 1 is a friend of mine. Taxpayer 2 is a board member, not Miss Finley. You'll see, I got all of this from Daniel Reeves, tax commissioner. He's got a website. Obviously, you can go, you can look at your bill, everybody's bill. Taxpayer 1, since 2019, he's been in that home. His building value, his land value, and his assessed value are all the same. They're all the same. BOE and the millage are on the next side. In the red is the BOE. On the right is the county millage, okay? I look at millage as the percent of the valuations that we have to pay. Taxpayer 2, he's got a building value there of 302,044. Land value, I can't see.
Am I on your way?
Yeah, a little bit, that's okay though. Land value of 97, and then 232, and that came in 2024, and it doubled his taxes. Now, I know that it's hard to say, I don't want to hear about millage, but that's literally the percent of the tax digest that you're paying, correct? I mean, is that,
It's not percentage. but
It's not a
it does-
percentage, but,
It is the calculation method that's used to calculate the property tax.
right, so,
If the millage goes up, you'll pay more in tax.
Right.
If the millage goes down, you'll pay less, unless the value of your property changes.
so,
And that, look, you can see some years or some properties have changed a lot over the last few years and some haven't. I'm in the group with you that mine jumped pretty big, this time, so mine went up, but the millage actually went down. So we don't drive the value, we don't set the value, we do set our millage.
so,
So we're not the only piece of the puzzle in that.
Who sets the
So-
millage?
we
set the
do, we
millage.
set the millage.
We set
now.
our millage. There are three pieces of it, actually. We set the school millage, the county sets the county millage, and the state has a piece in there too. So when you add
Now-
them all together, that's the total millage.
So, I do not wish to throw any other entity in this county under the bus. Because we stay in our lane. We're not gonna get mad at the county. The only thing the county does is they collect our taxes for us, okay? I'm not gonna get into city tax assessor. The tax assessor is the folks that come out and they value your property and your home. I am sure there's a method to everybody's madness, just like there's a method to what we do here at the Board of Education. The House Bill 581 is important because it caps some of those valuations at 3 years. And that is what we said, we're not opting out of that. We're going to allow our valuations to be capped at what, 3 years? I think it's 3 years and it's is it on the?
It's for the rate of inflation.
The rate of inflation.
Rate of inflation.
And there is some information out there, it's brand new, that just came out from the legislature, we voted on it, it's gonna go into effect. When we roll back that millage rate, we are not in cahoots with the tax assessor or with the county. We're just not, we get the tax digest every year. We say, what is our budget, this is our salaries, this is our light bill, power bill, water bill, copy bill, toner, pens, whatever it is that we're gonna buy. And this is what our budget, Amy goes into our meetings and she says, this is what we're gonna run on, salaries and this and that. Our meal is, in 2019, 15.18. We said, we don't need that much money. Next year, we're gonna go down to 14.8. We don't need that much money, so we've gone down probably almost 3 meals. So I don't know how they value homes. I really don't. I would love to know, and I'd probably have to go to school for that. But when the valuation goes up, like for taxpayer two, who I said is on this board, and I'm not gonna tell you which one it is unless he volunteers that information. But I think his taxes went from about 2880 to about 4200. I'm going to tell, now that I've gotten this information, I'm gonna tell taxpayer one, who's a friend of mine, that they're probably going to evaluate his home higher next year because they haven't in so many years, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? So that is the reason that I'm getting around to saying that's why we stayed in House Bill 581, to try to stop some of that where valuations are for one person after so much time, not for another person after so much time, to try to even that valuation playing field. Does that make sense? And that's why we stayed in it. We are probably one of,
There's less than 20% of the districts opted in to 581. Most of the school boards and school districts in Georgia opted out, but we didn't do that.
because they put that on the ballot with the House bill. And they said, well, we're gonna give you the opportunity, and we're also gonna give you the courtesy that even if your taxpayers want to stay in it and try to ease the burden of some of those valuations, you can still opt out. And we said, no, we're gonna opt in. So that's what we're trying to make you feel it, but in a better way, because I hear what you're saying. I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right there, and it's like that guy's property taxes went up $2,000. And just simply because he got valuated at a higher, with a higher valuation. So
What's
that's,
gonna happen
really
next
bad.
year,
The millage went down, I'm sorry.
What I'm saying, what should happen next year is if it doubled, and you said, you would only go up the rate of inflation.
Right.
So that makes sense, that's just a state legislature rule, but then they let us decide if we wanted to abide by that or not. That's what it said, just to give you a layman term. And then we said, yes, we will abide by that. So what happened to this person, taxpayer two, I don't think would be possible
Correct.
moving forward. That's what you're saying.
Yes, until a certain amount of time, and I don't know
It
what
can only
that
go
rate
up so
of time is.
many, the rate of inflation every
So,
year.
so much.
I think these huge jumps in taxes are
Did that
not
help you?
because of millage, it's because of
I
assessment.
kind of understand that.
Yeah.
It's
important to us, honey, that you understand it though, because
Let me say something, Helen, I know you and I understand that you feel, so let me tell you how I feel this, and this is my experience. Yes, millions of dollars have been into our school system and the facilities and everything. I'm gonna share with you how I feel that. My son is in college now, he's an incredibly successful athlete and academically. And he had people, teachers, coaches here, and great facilities to work in that invested in his life and changed his life. That's how I feel it. My daughter, that new ag facility that was paid for by E-SPLOST dollars, that ag program, the FFA program, absolutely changed my daughter's life. She found who she was in that ag program, and now she's gone to college, knows what she wants to do, and is working to do that. That's because there was a teacher there who loved her and invested in her and gave to her and set a course for her direction. That's priceless. I don't care how many millions of dollars it is. That's what I feel. That's what I'm investing in. I'm investing in our kids and all the other kids in this county, that we've got quality teachers and coaches investing in their lives and seeing their lives changed. So that's my experience of what I feel and why I don't mind paying this. And the fact that it's gonna keep my property taxes down. The reality is this E-SPLOST keeps our property taxes from rising higher than they are. That's why I'm a complete fan of it. And that's how I feel it. And when I see the changed lives of the kids around me.
Now, I will say this. I know a lot of older people, and I don't wanna call you out and say older, but a lot of older people are they don't feel it like Steve feels it because it's in his home. He writes, and probably writes a check to a couple of colleges every month and all of that, right? So every station of life is different. Because I'm 50, so it's different now. I'm watching my son graduate this year. My stepmom is 82. It's very different to her than it is to me because she's already been where I am, right? So it's probably very different for you. You don't have two teenagers, I guess, at home that are going to college. You don't have any of that. You're in a different station of life. So I absolutely understand that. That is why HB 581 is important and why we stay with it. Because it helps people who aren't as in it as Steve is, or I am, or Mr. Gartrell, who's got a daughter still in school. That's how we feel it. 581 is for folks like you, where we can do something about those valuations so that you don't feel it in that bad way when your taxes go up. Does that make sense? Because what he's talking about, maybe you're far removed from that. Does that make sense? That you're far removed from having one in college and one and all that. And I appreciate what Steve said. This school system has done a lot, not only for me, my daddy, my son, my Uncle Wallace. I mean, it's done a lot for all of us. But for someone like you who is in that later station, that's why 581 is so important. Because it stops some of that from hurting where you are.
Well, I know part of my problem is that I should have been at these board meetings all along. And if we can get younger folk in their 30s to get themselves here and figure out and see what's going on, that's part of the problem because we don't know what's going on. And I don't even really know if I'm asking the right question or not.
You are. Well, there is no such thing as a wrong question.
Can I ask a question for you? So what would you guys say to a senior who is saying they have, they want to pay less in property tax, or they heard another county had no property tax for seniors? Are they, I think that's kind of what she's asking. What can we say back to somebody? Because we sympathize with them. We really do, because I work with you guys and I see it every day. We really do. So what is our official answer to that?
We are, I can.
Well, we take a step this year to raise that senior's tax exemption. And I can only speak for me, but I think probably most people on the board, we gotta see what that feels like with our revenue. But it would be my hope, while I'm on the board, if we see that, hey, we can manage that, then we continue to raise that. But we can't raise it at the expense of not being able to do the business of the school system. But my hope would be we're able to continue to raise that. And the fact is, if this community continues to grow and there's a larger tax base, we might get to the point one day where you can have a full senior tax exemption. We're not there right now. We can't do that. It would be catastrophic. Gilmer, when they did that 2 years ago, before they should have, it almost bankrupted their school system. So we've got to do it judiciously and well. And my mom's one of those people too, Helen. I mean, that she still lives here and pays those. And so if we can find a way to continue to bring relief to that, then I'm all for that. But we got to do it smartly and wisely.
Well, I'm glad we were able to raise that threshold tonight for senior tax exemption. We were the first board that would touch it in 27 years because it began the same year that SPLOST, the original SPLOST, was voted upon in the 96 election and came in 97.
If I could address generally your question, but these are some questions that I have gotten over the years from other folks. And so this is not directed at anybody specifically. But I've had people say, I don't have any kids in the school system, I shouldn't have to pay school taxes. I don't have any kids in the school system either, but other people paid along with me. Other people paid for my kids to be educated, and I am more than happy to pay my taxes. Well, not really happy, but I'm willing to pay my taxes to pay for other people's students to go. We have a range of incomes in this county, and if we only expected those who have children in the school system, they could not afford their taxes. It would be that high. I also have had, along those lines, I've had people say, well, I'm 65 years old now, I shouldn't have to pay taxes anymore. Well, let's just go back to my first point. I want, when I call 911 and take me to the hospital, I think I'm having a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, I want educated EMTs to come and get me. I want them to be well educated, to know what they're doing. And if my property taxes makes that happen, then so be it. One more thing. Part of the millions and millions of dollars that we have collected also goes to dual enrollment. And dual enrollment is good for the kids where they can go to high school and take some college classes. But dual enrollment is a wonderful blessing for the parents because these students can get college credit, but they don't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for that to happen. And that right there is, in essence, money back in the parents' pockets. And we have wonderful educators who help guide our students through dual enrollment. Mr. Dan is part of that. He's the big part of it. But that's another positive for our educators. Yes, ma'am?
I don't think any of us seniors want to pay no taxes. That would be ideal in a perfect world. But we do think it's fair that we get a cut. $25,000 a year.
Agreed.
We agree, that's why we just raised it to 40.
Are you saying your taxes are $25,000 a year?
No.
Okay.
The exemption.
Okay.
Yeah, the exemption.
That we get the break on.
Okay.
That anyone would get a break
Well,
on.
like,
Well, did that And y'all just voted recently?
Yeah, it's in the state.
Was that a unanimous vote?
Yeah, it's
It was?
yeah, well, it was a past vote, but it now goes to the state to be approved by the state, which, I mean, that's just a formality.
It's pretty much a rubber stamp,
A
they
rubber
just have to put it in a legalese. But we voted to raise it to $40,000
Would be anticipated going into effect.
2026.
for next year.
I would guess for next year, I would think.
I know I have an influx of people building on my road, expensive homes, and I'm just waiting on that assessor to come around and give me the bad news.
Well, if you've got homestead exemption on that property, Steve,
Then it can't.
House Bill 581 caps how much
Protects
they
you.
can get you at one time.
Yeah, that's in effect now.
And that,
The 40,000 thing will be probably the next year. For clarity, for my question, that was about property taxes. This is sales tax.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just not sure, and I know people feel property taxes, but we're actually voting and debating about sales tax. Not passing the SPLOST or passing the SPLOST, how does that affect property taxes?
If we don't have SPLOST dollars, ultimately, property tax is gonna go up.
They definitely would not.
Because you gotta have, that's what's gonna happen. That's why I like the SPLOST.
Well,
I
you
don't
have
want
to
my
make
property taxes going
You would
up.
make the cuts first,
Yeah.
and then, make cuts as far as you can go, because that's what you wanna do really is cut.
But is it fair to say it would be very difficult, if nearly impossible, to do more to cut property taxes without the SPLOST? You understand?
Yeah.
But if we didn't have SPLOST,
Right,
it might not go up, it might,
right.
but it would definitely not go down. I mean, that's.
Right,
I know I can-
it definitely would go down.
Well, and if you look at it, let's say, grocery bill just went up, so let's say we spend $200, $250 if you have an 18-year-old boy at Kroger every week, it's about $1,000, and you have, let's just say you spend another $500 in the county. So let's just say we spend $1,500 in the county. What is the SPLOST that I pay in on that? What is,
I'm sorry.
if I spend $1,500 in this county next month, what is that cut of that goes to SPLOST?
$15.
$15.
$15.
And I would much rather pay $15 a month than have to have an increase in property tax.
Did that help you?
Please don't forget that, and I know y'all know this, that a lot of these people are on fixed incomes.
Yes.
Sure, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons we
I
raised.
mean, if Social Security says they're gonna give us a 2.3% raise,
Mm-hmm.
my Medicare's gonna pick that up,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So I didn't get a raise.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of these people are women, widowed women,
Mm-hmm.
that are drawing $500-600 a month.
Well, they get it though.
Yeah, they would qualify for
Mhm.
25,000,
I
yes.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
But, we just don't get, when you get a certain age, you don't get the raises everybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like Steve said very well, we would have total exemption for anybody over 65 if we could, and we hope to get there. We hope to get there. We're not unsympathetic.
Now, one thing I've observed that the two counties that I know of has a very large senior tax exemption. They were not able to opt in to House Bill 581, so there would be no cap on their assessment going forward, that it would be like it's always been. So I guess that's kind of a catch-22, robbing Peter to pay Paul type situation. But I had noticed that. I took a very careful interest in two counties in particular because I knew they had a larger senior tax exemption, and they immediately opted out.
Does anybody have any more questions about E-SPLOST that we can help you with?
Helen, you feel better?
No.
No.
I just wanna understand everything, and I'm going to,
Yeah,
okay? It don't stop right here with me. I'm gonna find out everything I can about how everything works in this county. So,
sure.
until God calls me home, I'm gonna be here.
Well, and two, what I like is our board meetings are streamed and they're also put on YouTube.
Well, they're there ever be a time when the kids can get a free lunch?
That's another great question. We do free and reduced lunches.
Everybody in the school getting a free lunch. I would give you my money if
That
those
actually-
kids could eat, all of them, as much as they wanted. My sister worked in the school, but she worked in the cafeteria. Y'all, it's pitiful. It's pitiful. She would take money out of her own pocket and pay for kids that needed to eat. It's bad.
How many, by what percentage did we raise the, free and reduced lunch? There were a lot of people, there were a lot of parents, let me start by saying
How
that.
much did we miss it by? Is that what you're
Well,
trying to say?
no,
We
I-
narrowly missed on program that
How many
the Gordon
did we?
County got in on.
Well, how many did we, when we got all the parents who either couldn't, and don't let me start crying, but could not read the form by themselves, whose children could not read the form, who were too ashamed to come and say, I think I qualify. We had opened it up, and what percentage did that rise by?
I think it was about 10%.
So 10%.
We have free reduced lunch. Some counties are able to offer it to everyone, no matter what your income is. Amy may have to help me with this, but that's based on the overall county's
Median income,
economics,
I think.
right?
Yeah.
And ours is too high. So Gordon's is low enough.
Yeah.
Gilmer is low enough, Dawson is not. We are not. It doesn't have to do with kids or parents, it has to do with the whole county, right? And so our whole county's economic status, medium income, is a little bit too high. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Bertrand? I think just barely
It's
too
just-
high.
Just by,
But I
just
know-
small.
Where the federal government would pay for everybody in that.
Who makes that rule, that it's too high?
The federal government.
State,
The federal
state and federal
The
government.
state and federal government, because the
So-
Department of Agriculture,
You
When we
have to
put the
meet
call
certain
out-
criteria for them to give the funds to us to cover the lunches for all the kids. And we don't quite make the cut.
So
We're
this-
close, but we're not.
Because we're in a very, I was born and raised here, and so this is a very odd county. I love it, but it's also very odd. We have a lot of people who retire here from Florida, Fulton County, wherever they're from. We also have a lot of people out in Hill City, which is where I'm from, that we have to send bags of lunch home or bags of food home with the kids on the weekends so that they eat at home. And it is that, I hate to use the word inequality, but it's that uneven,
Disparity.
income disparity that kind of knocks us out. So we have a lot of kids that don't eat on the weekends, and we give them a bag of food, and they go home, because sometimes the only meal they have is at school. But then there are some who, and not only retirees, let me not just throw them under the bus. I mean, we have a lot of people who move in and they drive to Atlanta and work and come home and they make a good salary. But putting those two together, our median income is too high.
we did because of that, to Ms. Gibson's point, we made a push to get as many kids
Yes.
qualified as possible. And that has gotten better. We also make a robust, what's called weekend snack program, people can volunteer to help with, where they send those kids home food on the weekends. So we have tried to build those programs, but unfortunately, we're not legally able to offer free lunch to every student.
We're not poor enough.
But no student has refused a meal.
Absolutely.
We have something called the Angel Fund. If a student needs to charge a meal to make sure they get food for the day, the school food program, people make donations to what's called the Angel Fund, and then those charges are taken care of. And
Yeah, they can charge now,
Parents take it.
probably different than when your sister worked. They get to eat.
they get
We just have to go back and recover the cost, either from the parent or from an Angel Fund,
The Angel
or
Fund.
the board's made a couple decisions to help with that too.
And we have churches in the community as well that help.
They help with the back.
They may not always, toot their horn, but we have some churches that are very, very caring and I mean, they all care, but we have several churches that are very involved in seeing that these children have extra meals.
Any more questions, anybody? Thank y'all for coming. Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment here, just so that everybody, with these people here and the people who will be watching this later, y'all been referring to the House Bill 581 a lot. That's common knowledge amongst the school system. And when that was passed, if these people here voted on, in November, they voted on that. And it was very attractive, the wording was very attractive, which was just a paragraph long, yet y'all seen the bill, it's one of the largest actual write-ups I've ever seen, and very hard to understand it. And y'all are challenged with making sure that y'all are opting, not going to opt out of that, which the majority of our county did, vote for that because of how it was written, and myself included. And my concern, just like this gentleman's concern was, is as homes grow, people come in, and will that make my house more valuable on the market and cause my taxes to go up? So obviously y'all voting to opt out, where you said the majority are not going to do that for their.
We opted in.
Opted in. So y'all are protecting what the community voted
Yes,
for there,
that's right.
and protecting that, because my fear, what you just described, my
Yes.
fear, I was born and raised here. And when these values go up, you're fearful of yours. So keeping that at the rate of inflation, you're doing exactly what the best you can do there by preventing those property taxes to go up. So that's a big deal. We talk about it all the time in the school system because it impacts us. But just to make sure that people watching this are understanding that you're very unique on being able to protect the wishes of the voters here. That's a big deal to protect that.
We do listen. We do listen to our voters.
There's just been so much going on, so many different factors come in, but the House Bill 581 is gonna be one of the greatest protections for your home assessments going forward. Because it does cap it. No longer can it come in and go up 60%, 80%. Something ridiculous like that is gonna be capped to the level of inflation.
And just so you guys know, Cherokee County, a lot of neighboring counties opted out, and they heard from their taxpayers too. It was not very popular. I had friends from Cherokee County call me and ask me about it because they knew it was a school board thing. They went to so we've allowed our voters and our citizens, they're gonna experience the benefit of that, where it was taken away from a lot of other people in neighboring counties.
And also the county government did not opt out.
Right, county did
Only
not
the
opt
city
out.
government here,
Yeah.
any of the city governments here opt out.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay,
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
okay. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much for
Thank you
coming.
for coming.